Good morning, Anthony. Happy Fourth Feast to you as well. And happy feast to St. Edmund. And you, Anthony, know me long enough to know that my name was Edmund before it became Philip. Again, so it's also sort of secondary or tertiary or one of the many name days that I have. So happy name day, happy St. Edmund's Day. I don't know if you don't know anything too much about St. Edmund, then he's someone that you really ought to come to know. And I have one of the very first icons of St. Edmund, which is written for me by Aidan Hart. In fact, I have two, one of which is part of the proto-icon of St. Malengith. St. Edmund, born 841, we think, roughly then, died in 869. So still a very young man when he died. Martyred for Christ and also protecting his own kingdom. Edmund, as you probably know, means the strong protector of your own. And there are many interesting things about St. Edmund that I think you should look up and come to enjoy. He's an extraordinary person. And yes, I am talking in the present tense. For some reason, this line has gone down. There's no danger at all of me getting sun in my eyes today. In fact, a very little while ago, not now, it's pouring with rain at the moment. A little while ago, we were underneath the clouds, so the clouds have gone slightly up. So let's see who's here. We've got Nicola, Margaret, Pranesh, good morning, Jim, Bob, Christos, Phoebe, Vera, Father Alexander, and Jovan, good morning. And your prayers, Father Alexander, God bless you all. Raining in Cheshire. I think it's going to rain everywhere today. A thoroughly miserable looking day out there. I keep on trying to see signs of increased light or a little crack of blue somewhere, but I don't think there's the slightest chance of that. And looking over towards Shrewsbury over there, I can't see the Wrekin. It's shrouded in mist. Okay, good morning, Judith. I hope your connection is better than it was yesterday. Good morning, Beverly. Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Maria Helena. Thank you very much indeed for your email. I've just answered it, so that's something for you to look at later if you've not seen it already. Good morning, Vicky and Gary. Right, we better crack on, otherwise we'll spend the whole of the so-called 10 minutes saying hello to each other. Anyway, good morning, Tony, from a soaking rain sodden island. It's not all that different here, Tony. In fact, it's very, very similar to when you came and stayed with us here. The clouds barely left us. It's been like that this morning. Yesterday, beautiful day. Today, not so gorgeous. It's got its own sort of beauty, though. It's quite interesting. If I look out of both eyes now, it looks like I've got cataracts. That sort of mistiness over the whole thing. Mr. Nazgulo. Oh, John McGrath. Good morning, John. Right, here we go. Now, we're going to try and crack on and read an enormous amount today. Well, I'm lying. If we get 2 verses, we'll be doing well. So, John chapter 1, verse 4 and 5 is what I'm hoping to do. And you might be saying, haven't we done verse 4? Yes, we're on verse 4, part C, I think. It goes on and on what we can say about verse 4. So, verse 4, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. We said earlier on, ton anthropon, that earlier on being yesterday. Ton anthropon, it means humanity, anthropos, people. In him was the light of people. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. Difficult word, that word comprehend. Doesn't really mean comprehend at all in English, but we'll try and find out what it does mean. Okay? Now, this idea of the Lord being the light of anthropos, ton anthropon, of humanity, is a really important idea. You've got to remember that the writer of this book is Jewish, and you can see that all the way through. There are lots of Jewish ways of explaining things and Jewish idioms that come into it all the way through as well. Thank you for Christos putting that down there. Might be worthwhile putting verse 4 in as well, if you can. So the light of men. So the writer is Jewish, and that is important. So first of all, we have, like we said yesterday, it's through the medium of life, the light becomes known. And so through the whole medium of creation, if you look into creation, you should be able to discern God. Now, there's quite a big thread within the Fathers of the whole of creation being made as a sort of temple. And that temple is a dwelling place for God. He doesn't need a dwelling place, but he chooses to have a dwelling place. And within that temple, you have a priesthood, and that priesthood is humanity. You see this in every single one of the religions, really. There's some sort of priesthood, there's some sort of temple, even the various religions that have no God. So if you think of something like the football religion, the temple itself would be a stadium, like Wembley Stadium, and the priesthood would be the players on the pitch. They're the priesthood, and then the other people are engaging in the worship with them. In case you're wondering, there's a lot to be said regarding football as being a religion, a complete religion within itself, with all the various aspects that a religion has. Same could be said of cricket, or basketball, baseball, American football, soccer, hockey, and all those other sports as well. They take on the resonance of a religion. And so you have some sort of temple, you have a priesthood within it, and you then have adherents within the religion as well. And that's an important way of thinking about the whole cosmos, everything that is a sort of temple for the worship of God, or the dwelling place of God, somewhere God chooses to be. He creates the Garden of Eden and walks in the cool of the garden, and Adam and Eve come and join him as his priesthood. And that priesthood is quite interesting, because you can see that the priesthood is about communion, about being in community, in communion with God. It's not having God far distant, it's walking with God in the cool of the evening. And the whole of that creation, whole of this creation that we see in, for me, I can see miles of it, beautiful creation in front of me here. I'm lucky because I live in the middle of a national park, an area of outstanding natural beauty. And it really is outstanding, even on a rain-sodden day like today. Then you can see the way that God actually enters into this as his temple, and therefore in his temple you should be able to discern him. Okay? And then the second thing is about that, the way it says the light of anthropon, ton anthropon, the first ton anthropon. Okay? And of humanity. Now, the Jewish person writing about this is why this is important. It's amazing. The Jewish people had this idea, which was true, that God had revealed himself to them. He was in the process of revealing himself to them more and more. They hadn't heard from him for 450 years. In our case, this would be like looking back to someone like Elizabeth I or Henry VIII. And that's the last time God spoke. But in all of that time, they had been more or less faithfully following the Lord. And the Jewish people had this very strong feeling, strong understanding of God, that he had appeared to them and he was their God. In the readings on Sunday, St. Paul talks about breaking down the middle wall of partition between the Jews and the Gentiles, that those who were once two are now one. And this is a really important idea here. So he's not just the light of the Jews. It goes back to the Song of Simeon, the light to enlighten the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel. It's the light for everybody. So the actions, the person and presence of God revealed to the Jewish people. And now this is now thrown open to everybody. And that effect of breaking down the barriers, as St. Paul will say on Sunday. No Jew, no Greek. Okay? So for us, we ought to be thinking about that very seriously too. If there are no barriers between God's love for the Jews or the Greeks, the Gentiles, that means, the Jews and Gentiles, then there should be no barriers for us either. The light of God we should be actively promulgating to everybody everywhere through our own love, through our own shedding of the light of the gospel as well. And we should therefore be actively breaking down all barriers between each other. If I'm not careful, I'm going to be preaching my sermon all over again here now, rather than on Sunday. So the barriers of birth and race and nationality, class, beliefs, even barriers between the sexes, barriers of ability and disability, wealth, and so it goes on. Brother Dane was always saying that I, like St. Paul, like to make nice lists of things, and that's true. I find myself doing it over and over again. It's one of the characteristic ways that I write. It's also one of the characteristic ways that St. Paul writes. Okay, so all of those barriers, birth, race, nationality, class, beliefs, and so on, those too need to be broken down, because the Lord himself has broken down all the barriers. So the light of humanity, Christ, must be allowed to shine both in and on all people. Of course it does. Sometimes we don't recognize the light of other people, the light of people very different from us. I don't recognize the light of people very different from me very often, shining out from somebody who's an atheist or a Hindu or Muslim or someone who is Baha'i. And yet the light does shine out of people. And part of our job is to recognize that, celebrate it, rejoice in it, offer it back to God. So mission and evangelism is for all, and it is a task, a basic task of the church. So that great sin of superiority, whether it's cultural or ethnic or to do with sex or to do with race or class or whatever it might be, that sin of superiority is just that. It's a sin. And it's a sin that we have to dig out of ourselves and get rid of. It's a very difficult thing. Now, earlier, in one of the other talks, I talked about God. In fact, in several of the other talks, we'll come back to this time and time again, talked about two words. The first word is ano, which means above. So you can go in Greece to somewhere called something like I'm going to make it up, Ano Petropolis, and then you can go to Kato Petropolis. So Ano Petropolis is the higher St. Peter's town, and Kato Petropolis is the lower St. Peter's town. So Ano above, Kato below. So far, everything in John has been Ano. It's been from above. And all the way through John, we get this movement between Ano and Kato and Kato and Ano and Kato and so on, all the way through. It's a recurring theme, along with various other themes like lightness, light and dark and so on. So this idea now suddenly changes. So far we've been Ano all the way across, and suddenly we go to Kato. And we go to Kato in verse 5. Okay? In verse 5. And the light shines in the darkness. And the darkness did not comprehend it. So suddenly from light and creation and time before time and all the rest of the thing, we suddenly go from there to darkness. Okay, you see that huge, quite shocking change. It's a shocking change. People often don't notice, but that's because we've read it so many times. We're not noticing it. Jovan is reminding her that Patriarch Irene has died. Yes, may his memory be eternal. I shall remember him in the proscomedy tonight. We have a vigil tonight for the feast tomorrow. We had a vigil last night for St. Edmund today. And that's why last night we didn't live stream that, but we'll live stream the one on YouTube on this channel this evening. Yes, Christ is risen. May Patriarch Irenaeus may he be blessed with memory eternal. So we suddenly go down to Cato, standing, as it were, where we are. Standing where we are. The light shines in the darkness of where we are. The darkness of humanity. The darkness of our history. The darkness of the fall. The darkness of the estrangement from Eden. The darkness of our estrangement from the relationship with God. The darkness of our estrangement with our relationships between each other. The darkness of our estrangement even with ourselves. Me estranged from me. And the darkness of the estrangement between us and creation, which is redolent with God. Okay? The darkness of our self-understanding. The darkness of being lost. Okay? The darkness of living in confusion. The darkness of being alone and lonely. It's one of the terrible things about life that even people surrounded with other people, even people living in a family, even people living with the person they love most, often feel lonely. In fact, almost always feel lonely. The darkness of being forgotten and worthless, and so inner bereavement that people suffer. The darkness also of death. It's almost a sense in this darkness here of non-being. Remember, in the darkness, light was created. So the darkness has that sense of non-being. And there's a sense in which humanity needs to be recreated through baptism and chrismation and the other sacraments, the other mysteries, into being, certainly into personhood. So they're taking out of the before creation darkness, the darkness of the realm of Satan, of confusion, of chaos that Satan always tries to move everything towards, that entropy that everything moves towards, the darkness of nothingness. Okay? And it's into that darkness, suddenly the light shines out, just like in the beginning of the Bible. That's why I went through that business of the 7 days of creation. In the beginning, God says, let there be light. And the light shines out in the darkness. The darkness, the Logos, the light, the Logos shines in the darkness, illuminating all. You know, like at Pascha, when the priest shouts out, come receive the light from the light which is never overtaken by light. Glorify Christ who's risen from the dead. A few years ago, serving the liturgy for Pascha in Lincoln, and I was in the altar. And in the altar, you're quite separate from everybody else. There were one or two servers there. There were three servers there, one of whom Henry was already fast asleep, I think. And the light was lit on my candle. I was listening out. I thought, I can hear the choir, but I can't hear anybody else. Nobody has come. And because you're quite dazzled by the candle in your hand, I am quite dazzled by the candle in my hand. I go out, open the doors, and go out, and you say this. I couldn't see anybody at all. Nobody. I thought, they're beggars. They haven't turned up. All this effort that I've gone through today, cleaning the place and preparing everything, and nobody's come. And I said this, and somebody came. Quite a number of people actually appeared as from nowhere and lit their candles. And in the next minute or so, I saw rank on rank on rank on rank of the light going out through the darkness of the church. And as I did so, the church itself became brighter and brighter and brighter. And there were 300 odd people there. The place was stacked to the gunnels with folk. And then, of course, there's the procession and everything else. And half the congregation ran away then to go and eat meat rather than receive communion. But never mind. They had come, and I had seen the light of the world spread throughout the church and then go out of the church and into the world. And that has that feeling within it. Okay? And we talk about people at that point being filled with light, by being enlightened by the light of Christ. So suddenly, from this situation of being in kato, from being below, the light shines in the darkness. And we're given that taste of above. And it goes on, back to the darkness. Okay? So the natural place for humanity is not in the darkness. The natural place is in the light. But we can say perhaps we have chosen the darkness. We go and hide ourselves in the dark places, away from Christ, away from God, in darkness. When Adam and Eve hide themselves in the Garden of Eden, they choose darkness over light. The light of Christ is now too bright for them. And even at that point, they have covered themselves up with leaves so that they are no longer naked to the light of God. They're trying to hide themselves within the clothing. And then, of course, God then dresses them in animal skins. He dresses them in death. Beforehand, there had been no death. But it says then about the darkness. Okay, the darkness did not comprehend it. That word comprehend in Greek is quite a tricky word to get hold of. Okay, so αυτω, K, let's start again. K is σκοτια. Αυτο, κατελαβεν. The darkness did not κατελαβεν. And that word in New Testament Greek means mastered, like mastering your lessons or mastering your opponent. So it has two meanings to it. Thank you, Christos. Means overcome, comprehended, understand, grasp, seize, take hold of, conquer, and comprehend in the way they understand it completely. Okay? And the darkness does not understand it completely, does not overcome it. There's nothing that darkness can do, either to understand the light, because it's totally separate from it, or conquer the light. The light can conquer the darkness, but the darkness cannot conquer the light. And it's interesting here, because this word, there's a specific term for it. It's a nomic aorist tense. I love that. So the known past tense, you could say, nomic aorist tense. And that is used when you're talking about something that is outside time. So outside time, so maybe even before the creation of everything that is, but within outside time, the light has already conquered the darkness. Okay, the darkness cannot comprehend it. Outside time. Inside time, we're still living in that process of the light conquering the darkness. And I said a few days ago, maybe a week or two ago, with every generation of people, so the light has to conquer the darkness all over again. You cannot conquer it once for all, because then another generation of people are then born, and this group of people also need to be flooded with the light. and come to the light of Christ as well. Now this theme in John of darkness and light is very strong and appears many times all the way through John. I'll just go through some of these pieces of it. So you have in John chapter 3, people love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. And then you have on the boat on Lake Galilee, you have on the boat, they're in the darkness in chapter 6, verse 17. They're in the darkness in the lake, and the Lord comes to them. The Lord in chapter 8:12 says, I am the light of the world. The one who follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And in chapter 12, walk while you have the light, so the darkness will not overtake you. The one who walks in darkness does not know where he's going. Is that idea of being lost in the darkness again. Come to Christ, no longer lost. In chapter 12, further on, 46, I have come as light into the world, so that everyone who believes in me should not remain in darkness. And then finally, the great, huge overtaking of the darkness by light and life in chapter 20, where it says this, something really beautiful. On the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb whilst it was still dark. And what does she find? She finds the light and the life of Christ. She looks in, the place must be light. Maybe the sun is coming up. It would be coming up behind her, flooding the tomb with light. But actually, the light comes from out of the tomb. There's a young man in there dressed in white. And eternal life is then promulgated from there. Okay? Well, I think we've done quite a lot there. The darkness not comprehending the light is something important. Various people announcing the untimely death of Patriarch Irini. May his memory be eternal. Christ is risen. Phoebe our services are largely at the same time. So in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, in the evening, 5 o'clock in the evening, during the week. On Sundays, because I am also live streaming to my parish, we start the services at 7:30 in the morning. So this evening will begin at 5 o'clock in the evening. Okay. Good morning, Sissy. Father Alexander talks about football is often a better religion than the church. They engage their faithful Sunday to Friday, not just Saturday afternoon. The devotion is not swayed by others' opinions, and their catechism is strong. Yes, and it has all the negative aspects of religion, like bigotry, in it as well. Special clothes, special places, special rules, special ways of living, all sorts of things. Every one of what's the name of the person who said there were 7 different characteristics of religion? Ninian Smart. Ninian Smart. He said there are 7 characteristics of religion, and he then went on to show that this is true also for football and various other peculiar things too. Okay. Football can also be a force of good, of course. Good morning, Christine. Children of the day, children of the light, quite right. Yep, okay, Phoebe, we should look forward to you watching as well. So today, if you could pray, please, for the Patriarch, Irini, that his memory may indeed be eternal. Also, as we've been doing for Angelos, for Joseph, for Andrew. Yesterday I was told about a young lady called Vespina who had died. If you could pray for her as well, that would be a blessing. Okay. Margaret, yes. Every generation we have to come towards Christ. Christos, I will keep you posted. One of the members of our parish in Worcester, it is his nephew, so he will keep us informed. Okay, I've asked him to do that. He'll let me know very frequently. So please pray for each other. Pray for me. Today is Friday, so I will make a sermon for Sunday. Tonight we will live stream. Somebody said to me, I always look so serious in church, and much less serious in everyday life, they said. We know it's the same thing. There's no difference at all. I do take the worship very seriously. We're not standing there giggling before God. We are cuddled up to him. If you look at the way the Lord is in the scriptures, he was open, warm, friendly, clearly approachable. And yet at the same time, there's a sternness about him, a deep seriousness about what he's up to. And in church, I always find that I'm confronted with that deep seriousness of what we're doing, that very sober way of coming towards God. Time and time again, I'm reminded within the services that I, sinful though I am, stand before God. I particularly, all of us together, obviously, but I also, and it's my hand that stretches out to bless the bread and the wine and consecrate it and make it into, the Lord makes it into the body and blood of Christ, but it's my hand that reaches out towards it and my hand that breaks it. And that seriousness, I think, is something that is very important. We should have there. Really important to, within yourself, to have the two things together. There must be the joy of the resurrection of our Lord. Always it has to be kept in mind. Always they're standing before God in that bittersweet way, that bright sadness of coming before God, bringing before him all those people who are suffering. How can we be truly happy today when we know that a young man in his 30s with 3 girls is going to has a massive malignant cancer within his bowel? That has to be part of my spiritual makeup, not just my spiritual, my physical makeup today. How can I think of absolute joy when I realize that an amazing person like Patriarch Irene has died today of this wretched COVID, and robbed us of a great and good man. I know he was very ill and very old, rather, but for him to die like this that reminds us all how important it is to pray for each other. Nobody, no matter how important they are, is actually automatically immune from the everyday troubles that come our way. Okay? God bless you. Christos, we thank God, and it is my privilege. Judith, please pray for Andrew, Joseph, yes do. Archbishop Hieronymus is also in hospital. May God have mercy. Okay, your prayers, God bless you. I better get off quickly, Margaret, haven't I? Okay. Have a good day. Good night to those who are going to bed. Good morning to the rest of you.